for some reason, gear it toward kids.
It's weird, yeah, it is.
But then really make it for adults.
Yeah. It's a cool movie for people that grew up with the Universal monsters. Because like these are kind of like the creatures I grew up with, and I could watch this with my kid and introduce him to this.
Yeah.
And we could go back and watch the old ones. Except your Blu-ray player won't play it.
Let's end this right here.
Okay.
Because we're not saying enough good things about it, other than go watch it. What I will, you know where we need to really end this? Let's end this with our cultural movie exchange. Because we don't have a whole lot to say about either film that we were supposed to watch.
That's true.
I threw in a ringer because he had drawn out of a hat. What did you draw the first time?
The first one was The Road, thank you.
Yes. And I just needed filler, and like out of the top of my head, I'm like, whatever, I'll put Lawrence of Arabia. Because the whole idea is to show the other person a movie that they normally wouldn't watch. I know you wouldn't sit down and watch that under normal circumstances.
But it's been on my radar. I have a list of movies, and that one was on there.
The list of movies on your radar, you're not going to live long enough to watch. So,
well, fuck you.
So I just threw it in there for that reason, and lo and behold, that's the one you drew out, and you still haven't picked the one I want you to pick. Mathematically, you're going to end up with it at some point because it's been in the hat every time. And I got Best Worst Movie, which is a documentary that I've been wanting to see, but also haven't had time for.
Yeah, which is kind of funny because the week prior to that, you got another Claudio Fragasso movie.
Yeah, there was a theme definitely in the bag. What I'll say about it is, I'll start with mine because I don't think I have as much to say. It's a good documentary. It's interesting that it was made by someone who was in the movie, the kid. And what I'll say about it is that pretty much solidifies what I feel what makes a good bad movie, and that is that the filmmaker has to be delusional about their product. If you don't actually believe you're making something good, then it won't be good bad. It'll be bad bad.
Yeah.
That's the problem with the sci-fi original, is that they go in trying to make a bad movie. That is not what Claudio Fragasso does. He goes in trying to make a good movie, and it always turns out badly, and he doesn't know it.
I know.
He's completely oblivious.
He doesn't realize that people love it, ironically.
Do you think that you did the worst movie? I did a very good movie.
He really believed in what he was making.
And that's what was great when he gets interviewed.
Offended almost, that people are laughing at it in parts when he's like, "This isn't supposed to be a comedy.
This is a terrifying film. Why are you laughing?"
Yeah,
you know?
So that's exactly what he needs to be to be able to make something like that.
And those types of filmmakers are few and far between these days.
They are. Generally, you need someone who has been in the ranks, finally gets a shot, and they're just delusional about the final product. That's pretty much who it is. Like. I mean, you can name other guys that have done it.
Oh, yeah. Ed Wood's always the go-to one for that.
Ed Wood, it's the same thing. He thought he was making a great movie, and he thought all he needed to make a great movie was Bela Lugosi. But there's something endearing about the effort he made. And the weirdest thing about a filmmaker like this is that they know a good movie when they see it, just not when they make it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There are other parts of the documentary that you know what the movie reminded me, or the documentary reminded me of, was King of Kong, which you haven't seen yet, and I should throw that in the hat.
I'll probably end up getting that one. Yeah.
The similarity between that and King of Kong is that you have these just normal day-to-day archetypes that people live.
Yeah.
You got this guy who's a dentist. And he's a successful dentist, and people like him in the community.
I was in a movie back in 1989. It's called Troll 2, and it's become known as the worst film of all time.
Really?
Yes.
He's just
and
a
yet he
nice
wants
person.
to be known for this stupid movie.
Well, he didn't want to be known for it. He was shocked that it has this huge cult following.
Yeah, he's shocked, but he's so out of.
And then he
tries.
tries.
Like he goes.
He
to
tries
the
to embrace
he's
it.
So out of place, it just isn't him.
He tries to embrace it at first, and then by the end of the documentary, he's like, "This isn't for me."
Without being too judgmental,
yeah.
I think because he has such a good relationship with his ex-wife and his daughter, I think he turned out to be gay. I think he's gay.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's why. Because who gets along with their ex-wife? He didn't marry again. I think he realized he was gay and got a divorce, and she was okay with it because she's like, okay, we'll follow your heart or whatever.
Huh.
Watch it again. There's no women in his life other than his ex-wife and daughter.
That's odd. Okay, well I will.
That's my call. That's my speculation. Not that it matters.
So you're saying this right now? So when he comes out and 10 years,
and
it rocks the film world. Oh my god! No.
Okay. I think that's what it is. Not that it matters.
Yeah.
And there is a sad part where you see who played the mother in the movie is taking care of her mother, and she's borderline
insane.
nuts.
But
there's just there's people like that in every neighborhood that are going through that, just where life just beats the crap out of them.
But she's in her own little world because she still has headshots and stuff. She keeps saying, "Oh, I'm working." But
you have to.
Yeah.
Everybody knows somebody like that where just enough went wrong where they're coping with reality by not acknowledging any of it.
Mm.
In a way, honestly, I think the most tragic character is Fergaso. Fergaso.
You always want to say Lugosi, Fergaso.
I know. His name sounds like it should be like a pasta or something. I'd like the Fergaso and the...
Fergaso Primavera.
Yeah. I think he's the most tragic character, more than her, because at least, she got broadsided by life.
Yeah.
Fergaso's just been in denial since he was born about who he is and what he's good at. He's the most tragic character. And I think... this documentary really holds up a mirror to yourself. It forces you to reevaluate yourself while you're watching it, which is also something King of Kong does. King of Kong, and I'm going to make you watch it at some point. You're going to agree with me that these two movies are in the same vein because they're movies really that are about how you deny things about yourself to get through life. How you ignore things about yourself to get through life. And that's what it's about. That's really the revealing thing about this movie. It has nothing to do with Troll 2. You watch it, it seems like it's about Troll 2 until you see how it's affected these people's lives. I was surprised to see the storekeeper was there and that he was...
Oh, I know. He's still creepy as hell, too.
He's the creepiest character in the movie.
He's
and
the worst
turns out
actor.
He's that creepy in real life.
Can I help you?
Coffee.
There's no coffee here in Nilbog. It's the devil's drink.
So, yeah, that's what the movie's really about. And I hate to say it, it's a reality check movie that you should be ready to evaluate yourself before you watch Best Worst Movie. Alright, so you got Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes, I did.
Which is the most bizarre way to end this show.
I deem him one of the greatest beings alive in our time. We shall never see his like again. His name will live in history. It will live in the annals of war. It will live in the legends of Arabia.
The first funny part of Lawrence of Arabia, well, it's not really funny, but I didn't do any research on it. I was just going into it blindly. And I thought it was just going to be a 2.5 hour long movie. Imagine my surprise when we hit hour 3.5.
Yeah, and there's an intermission. And
there's a friggin' 10-minute intermission of just music. And imagine my surprise again when the main character dies in the first 10 minutes. Yeah, it turned out to be an incredibly long movie.
Not boring long, though.
It wasn't boring, but I kind of...
Okay, it is boring if you look at it, comparing it to the pace of movies now. But if you can... I can actually watch an old movie and put myself in the position of someone who understands the pacing that movie was trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I wasn't going to complain about the pacing at all. I have no complaints about it, except that it was way longer than I expected. I finished it at 4 or 5 in the morning.
I told you to start it hours before that.
I know, but I just got home from work. Anyway, like you said, it was epic.
Lawrence of Arabia, filmed against a canvas of awesome magnificence.
Yeah.
The movie felt huge.
I remember prepping you for this.
A cast of thousands. It's refreshing. It was refreshing to see an army of people, and it was a legit army. It wasn't a copy and paste job.
Well, David Lean did not know how to hold himself back, and he could shoot anything and make it look epic.
Yeah.
Have you seen any other movies with Dr. Zhivago or Bridge Over the River Kwai?
I want to see that one.
That's a good one, too.
I do want to see Bridge Over the River Kwai. Dr. Zhivago, I'm not I must see this.
Dr. Zhivago, my earliest memory of Dr. Zhivago is my parents were taking me to see Ghostbusters, and there was a re-release of Zhivago, which, if adjusted for inflation, is like number 9 all-time
Really?
grosses. Yeah. But anyway, I made that number up, but it's high up there. It's high up there. It really is. Like for ticket sales.
Yeah. Okay.
I like to go back and see adjusted for inflation because it shows you like what was really popular. The problem with that is the re-release, like I said, because that had been, the release for that movie I think was like 70, maybe 69.
Oh, okay.
And when my parents were taking me to Ghostbusters, I was walking up and like there's all these people walking past me crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, Mom, why is everybody crying? And she goes, oh, they saw Dr. Zhivago. And for some reason that stuck with me. And I didn't see the movie until I was like in my teens.
Yeah.
But then I watched it and I was like, oh, that's why everybody was bummed out. Are you ever going to watch it?
Someday.
Okay, I'll tell you right now, it's not as good as Lawrence in my mind.
Okay.
It's visually as good as Lawrence.
Okay.
But the problem with Zhivago is that it's like a movie that has the hiccups. Like
tonally, or
no,
it'll
start
shot?
going and then it's back to this, and then it'll go again and
it jumps around a lot.
Yeah,
okay,
sort of.
Okay.
It doesn't know where it wants to go, and when it finally gets there, you're like, oh, that's what they wanted to do all along. Why did they take 3.5 hours to do this to me? Basically, I'm going to run the end for you to give you an idea whether or not you're going to watch it, and then we'll get back to Lawrence and what I want to say about Lawrence.
Okay.
And to see if this is what you got out of Lawrence. Zhivago, it's a love story. They show you how hard it is for these two people to fall in love because it's during the initial Russian Revolution when they went from
the whites versus the reds.
The whole Bolshevik.
Yeah.
All that. You see these two people fall in love. They have a very complicated relationship, and they get separated. And then years later, when it's like deep into being communist Russia, he's on a bus and he sees her walking by. The love of his life, and he's like jumps off the bus and he's running after her, and she never turns around, and he's trying to get to her, and then he has a heart attack and dies in the street, and she never turns around and sees that he was ever there. That's the climax of this movie.
Dear God.
Yeah, and you have to endure so much to get to that point, and a lot of it really has nothing to do with what they wanted to get to.
Yeah. God, that's depressing.
Yeah. You should at some point in your life watch it just because of the visual. It's eye candy.
Yeah.
It has stuff where you're like, oh, where did he come up with that visually?
Style over substance?
I don't want to say that because there's plenty of substance in the movie.
Okay.
It's just too much. It was at a point in David Lean's career where he could do a movie where you expected there'd be an intermission in it. But did that mean it needed to be?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think so. There are people who would want to, like film enthusiasts that want to punch me in the face for saying this. I just think it's too long and it could be shortened. Lawrence, on the other hand, I think is the perfect length for what it's trying to say. It's long, but it takes you down this road, and nothing that happens is like divergent from what the movie's about the whole time. And Lawrence visually is one of the most stunning films ever made, where you're just like, how in the hell did he shoot this movie?
Yeah. The cinematography in it was great.
There's just images in it, like when they're lost in the desert. He's with the two kids and he loses one of them in the quicksand, and then you don't know if they're going to make it out alive. And then you look up and you see a ship going by in the sand dunes. It's like, what an image!
That was cool.
To just bam put you into where it's just like it's such a well thought out image that doesn't beat you over the head. It's bewildering. What's the ship doing in the desert? Oh, they're safe.
They've reached the canal.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it isn't so obvious. It's nice to see a movie that doesn't spoon-feed you things. And there were elements... It's so hard to look at it now as we watch it because there are elements of the film that people hadn't seen things like before, where, like when he's holding the match, because he likes to... It says something about his character that he likes to let that match burn down to his fingers before he blows it out. Then he blows it out. When he blows it out, where the light of the match was is lined up with the sun in the next shot. Nobody did stuff like that. Yeah. Everything was fades and wipes, you know.